Throughout history, there have been plenty of criminals that have done some things so heinous that they are unlikely to be forgotten. Many of the most prolific serial killers in history have maintained a sort of cult-like following, where their names are propped up in almost reverent manner by certain people. This is a large issue with the modern media because it paints serial killers in a strangely positive light. The more recent documentaries about the likes of Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, for instance, don't seem to be made in any sort of shaming way about what they did to their victims. The experts they call in seem to speak about the murderers in a way that's almost adoring, which is obviously quite bizarre. But because of this, many disturbed individuals have come to the conclusion that if they start to perform terrible acts like this, then they have a chance to be one of the most famous people in the world. They know that if they're eventually caught, they will be propped up by the news and media and will eventually garner their own cryptic following. This was exactly the case with Luka Magnotta, a man who chose to become a serial killer simply because it would make him famous. Luka Rocco Magnotta, originally known as Eric Clinton Kirk Newman, was born on July 24, 1982 in Scarborough, Ontario. His parents, Anna Yorkin and Donald Newman, were incredibly young when they had him, being only teenagers at the time, but would in fact go on to have 2 more children after Magnotta. The family moved around a lot, and according to his father, Luka struggled to make connections with kids his own age. He was supposedly very isolated and tended to hang out by himself a lot rather than meeting up with anyone from the nearby town or school. Donald Newman elected to leave his family once he was diagnosed with schizophrenia because he believed that he would be a danger to his wife and his children. This, however, left the 3 children in Anna's care, who also suffered from mental illness and had severe germophobia. Kids are, quite generally, fairly dirty little creatures who like to play outside in the dirt and track it all through the house, which Anna absolutely could not stand. She would reportedly lock Luka and his siblings out of the house and wouldn't let their pet rabbit stay inside the house during the winter, which unfortunately led to it perishing due to exposure. Both of Luka's parents also reportedly had issues surrounding alcohol, and at the age of 16, Luka went to live with his grandmother to get away from his home. This was in part due to his mother, but mostly due to her new boyfriend, who had been incredibly cruel to him during his short time there. He didn't find much comfort in his new home, however, as he was constantly berated by both his grandmother and his brother for being effeminate. After being homeschooled for a large majority of his life, Luka finally was able to go to I.E. Weldon Secondary School, where he would attend for approximately 2 years. He would not end up graduating, however, due to several issues that occurred between him and the faculty. During his time in school, however, Luka became obsessed with his looks and tried to become a certain perfect version of himself. He changed his hair color a lot and began experimenting with certain things that his grandmother and brother bullied him for, such as makeup and facial cleanser. At the age of 20, Luka began pursuing a career in the adult entertainment industry, where he worked as an exotic dancer and starred in at least 2 movies, usually under the alias of Jimmy. Luka also worked as a paid companion, but his real ambitions lay in modeling and acting. Around this time, Luka began exhibiting signs that he too was suffering from a mental illness. He would go on to receive multiple diagnoses from paranoid schizophrenia to antisocial personality disorder. Around the time of his diagnosis, he began to get in trouble with the law, being found guilty of things such as fraud. In 2005, Luka reportedly befriended a lady with several learning disabilities. He manipulated her, earned her trust, and acted as her friend before convincing her to apply for several credit cards. Once she did so, he used them to spend over $10,000 on himself. He pleaded guilty and was given a 9-month conditional sentence. This meant that he wouldn't have to go to jail unless he was found guilty of an additional crime. The following year was when he legally changed his name to Luka Rocco Magnotta, just months before he had to declare bankruptcy due to his excessive spending. In 2008, after failing an audition for a Canadian reality show, he started to invest in plastic surgery, believing it would better his odds at making it in the industry. He thought that his looks weren't perfect enough yet, and if he could just sculpt himself into something better, the acting jobs would come rolling in. This did indeed lead to another audition for him, with the reality show called Plastic Makes Perfect. He openly admitted to being addicted to getting plastic surgery while on the show, explaining that he always compared himself to the prettiest people in the world and wanted to look like them. With his TV career failing to take off, Magnotta turned to catfishing on Facebook, where he made over 70 accounts and would use them to spread rumors about himself. One of these involved him being romantically involved with Karla Homolka, one half of the Ken and Barbie Killers. This made it to mainstream media, with several outlets reaching out for interviews. Although Magnotta claimed that the rumors were ruining his life, he was secretly thriving on the attention and had found the secret to what he was looking for. If he was associated with murder and the dark underside of the media, then his own presence in the media would soar. The person who interviewed Magnotta at the time believed that he was creepy, but didn't think he was capable of anything such as murder. Later on, he would say that he wished he'd spotted the warning signs in time and was able to warn somebody, because Magnotta would go on to be equally or more infamous than Karla Homolka herself. Nobody knows for sure if Luka knew what he was going to turn into at that time. Whether or not he had planned to begin his killings isn't known for sure, but eventually, in 2010, his online persona would take a turn for the worse. On his personal Facebook page, he would post a video of two men hitting another man with a hammer, which resulted in lethal injuries. Just 2 months later, he shared a video that would go on to garner him all of the fame and attention that he ever could have wanted. If you think that this story sounds familiar so far, it might be because in 2019, a Netflix original documentary was released about Magnotta entitled Don't F With Cats. The documentary series covered Luka's life all the way up until his fall from grace, where he posted a video titled One Boy, Two Kittens. Don't look this video up, it's horrible. And to spare the details, just understand that it showcased Magnotta, who hid his identity, taking the lives of two kittens in a horrible, disgusting way. The video went viral despite being taken down from YouTube within hours and caught the attention of several animal activist groups. They set up a Facebook group that was dedicated to discovering the identity of the person who had posted the video, and over 4,000 people would eventually join in the search. Luka was feeling the heat of the investigation and would eventually go to see a lawyer if he had any recourse in the situation. He claimed that he was the person in the video, but that he'd been coerced into doing it by a man named Manny Lopez, who was a former client that had turned into a permanent part of Magnotta's life. He claimed that Manny was behind the whole thing and had been planning to sell the awful video on the deep web. There is no evidence, however, to suggest that Manny Lopez exists. People eventually figured out that it was Magnotta that had posted the videos, but he was unable to be located anywhere in the world. Then in late 2011, Magnotta would post 2 additional videos to YouTube that would further infuriate the world. These both involved the death of helpless cats and reignited the search to discover his location. A few days after the second video was posted, Luka was discovered to be staying at a cheap hotel in London, England, by journalist Alex West. He interviewed Magnotta and asked about the overwhelming evidence that connected him to these heinous videos, to which he denied any involvement and claimed he was being tormented. Many days after the interview, however, West would receive a disturbing email from someone claiming to be John Kilbride, although it was almost certainly Magnotta, claiming that his next victims wouldn't just be small animals. In May 2012, everyone's worst fears became a reality. Magnotta had taken the life of a human being, a student named Jun Lin from Wuhan, China. Jun had moved to Canada in order to pursue a degree in engineering and computer science at Concordia University. He was reported missing on May 29, 2012, after his friends were unable to contact him and he didn't show up to his part-time job. When a video entitled One Lunatic, One Ice Pick showed up online, everyone knew what had happened. It took several days to identify the man who Luka had murdered, but eventually it was all tied back to him. He had delivered several packages containing body parts to various locations around the city, with one being located within the very apartment building he lived in. Luka had already fled the country and was spotted in an airport in France. Eventually, he was apprehended in an internet cafe in Berlin, Germany, where he had been looking up articles about himself. He was extradited to Canada, and after a 12-week trial, he was found guilty on all charges, which included first-degree homicide and posting obscene material. He was sentenced to a total of 44 years for his crimes and continues to research himself behind bars. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure to comment down below and let us know what kind of cases you'd like to hear about next. Make sure to like and subscribe to help the channel out a ton so that we can grow to be better and larger in the future. Be careful out there, and we'll see you in the next one.